Ronnie, over to you. Similar question. You know, what I would tell you is that the number of super young kids that I met at this conference, and I mean young, like 15, 16 years old, who were suddenly here curious about hard money and what that is, asking interesting questions that I wasn't asking when I was 15, right? And then you look at the emergence of assets like Bitcoin, right? Obviously more and more people are turning their head this direction. So is the significance and threat of counterparty risk escalated significantly in the last decade? And if so, what would you point to as some contributing factors?
I would say in the traditional investment world, it hasn't really changed at all. I think that most of the players still believe in the system. But obviously with COVID, I think many people just had to stay at home. They watched like stuff on YouTube, and they found out about, I don't know, the Austrian School of Economics, about Bitcoin, how our monetary system works. And I see from many people all over the globe that they're now starting to question actually the stuff that they always thought to be true. I wanted to get back to what Natalie said about trust. Our report it's no coincidence that it's called In Gold We Trust. And I think many people don't realize that trust is actually the foundation of our societies, that trust is the foundation of doing business. And the interesting thing about trust, it's very asymmetrical. I remember when I started in credit derivatives trading as a young kid, I didn't know what I was doing, and I think my bosses also didn't really know what they were trading with all those CLOs, ABS, and so on. But I remember there were like sales guys from London coming in from Lehman Brothers, and everybody said, Lehman Brothers, this company is around for 150 years, didn't have one quarter making a loss. And then actually it happened. It took just a couple of rumors, and the loss of trust in the solvency of Lehman Brothers went bust. So this asymmetry of trust, it takes ages to build it up, and then it can go very, very quickly to completely evaporate. That's something very, very important. And therefore I think, you know, at the moment everything on the surface seems very fine, but we all know that there's lots of risk around, not only the geopolitical risk, we know that the consequences of this massive hike in interest rates within a very short time frame causes lots of problems all over the globe. I can tell you, coming from Europe, the real estate sector is a mess. We're seeing so many zombie companies that are really struggling with that level of interest rates. So I think at some point counterparty risk will come back, but so far everybody is still pretty relaxed about that.
Real quick break here, guys. If you are a mining investor, you are without question familiar with the Golden Triangle region in British Columbia. This is one of the most prolific mining regions in the world due to its vast deposits of gold, silver, and copper. Now, for the last 4 years, Dolly Varden Silver has been busy expanding their high-grade silver deposit in the Triangle, and they are backed by some of the smartest investors in the silver business, including the legendary Eric Sprott, Hecla Mining, US Global Investors, Fidelity, Delbrook Capital, Sprott Resource Corp, and more. If you are curious why the smartest money in the silver business is cozying up to Dolly Varden Silver, then hit the link beneath this video.
Jay, if I can,
Please.
Echoing on, jumping onto this, trust. And I think, you know, we're talking here at a financial conference, but if we want to take it to a philosophical level, back to sort of trust being that sort of foundation of society. It's no coincidence that trust is at this low point, and the World Economic Forum, all you guys love that, those guys, right? Don't worry, they got your life under control. But they just had their meeting last week in Davos, and the main theme of the event was, how do we regain trust? That's like the whole theme. They talked about how do we regain trust. One of their big ideas, the number one risk factor they said, is misinformation and malinformation. So if they can censor what you think, they'll get more trust apparently. But I think while it seems a little bit, like I said, philosophical, you have to understand that really what underpins a society. At dinner, we had a good conversation last night talking about Brent Johnson talked about the earliest forms of money were always actually credit-based. And so, hey, I'll give you this favor if you give me a favor back later. So it was based off of trust. right? It's always trust. All credit is trust. If I give you an asset, even if I let you rent my house, I trust that you won't squat it, and I trust that you won't tear it down, et cetera. And I think we're at a point, unfortunately, where trust has been damaged, it's been destroyed. You know, Ronnie said maybe it's not that bad right now. I would argue the opposite. I think we saw it continue to escalate in the financial system, really escalated here in Canada with the trucker protest, where we saw exactly what could happen if you're just on the wrong side of what your government may want. And then we saw it when one of 3 global superpowers like Russia got their bank account seized. And I think the whole world was put on notice, like if it can happen to Russia, it can happen to anybody. If it can happen to the truckers, anybody. And I think the whole world was put on notice. And I think, you know, you've all had a relationship, a business partner that was caught embezzling, a girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse that may have cheated. That trust doesn't come back. And so I think it's like, how do we evolve now? Where do we go from here? And I think that's probably the biggest question if we want to think about it. A philosophical one, but it's an economic one as well.